Hi, everybody, it's Tim, and this is What I Saw When I Saw Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I want to talk about one scene in this movie, one of my favorite scenes, to explore some of the creative decisions that are manifest in it. As with all the videos I make about movies, I'm not suggesting that what I see is the right way or the only way to see the movie, nor am I arguing that what I see reflects the intentions of the people who made the movie. All right, here we go. In Terminator 2, as in the first Terminator movie, a T-800 is sent back in time from the future to the past, to what was, in 1991, our present. The T-800 stands, takes measure of its surroundings, and approaches the nearest building, a bar. Lights, sounds, the presence of transportation parked out front all suggest that there are people inside, and therefore clothing to be had. Now you'll recall in the first Terminator movie that a T-800 obtains clothing from a cadre of young men who appear to be loitering at night with nothing to do. The character Reese, meanwhile, also appears naked to the same time frame, and he obtains clothing first by stealing the pants off a homeless man. Reese might have taken more clothing were he not interrupted by the police, whom he evades by ducking into a clothing store, which is the most logical place to steal clothing, since you have a broad spectrum of sizes and even styles of clothing to choose from. So, why doesn't the Terminator do that? Why doesn't the T-800 break into a clothing store at night to try to find an extra large shirt, coat, pants, and shoes? Well, in the first Terminator movie, that might have been the T-800's plan, had it not first encountered the three young men. The T-800 demands their clothing, and these boys respond aggressively with switchblades. The T-800 kills one, and evidently scares off the second, to conveniently leave the one guy whose clothing will fit. Clearly, we have this scene because we need to establish the strength and the cold-blooded nature of the character that Arnold Schwarzenegger is playing. He rips a guy's heart straight out of his chest. And a fight scene is more dramatic than breaking into a store. But more importantly, I'd say, this scene is dramatically satisfying. The T-800 is naked, a condition that we associate with being vulnerable, and it is dramatically satisfying to see someone in a position of vulnerability dispose of knife-wielding troublemakers with no difficulty whatsoever. I believe that the stories that resonate with us contain some element of wish fulfillment. Characters are doing or saying things we wish we could do or say in real life. Or something happens in the made-up story that we wish we could see happen in our real lives. Here, we, the movie's audience, women as well as men, may wish we could dispose of tough guys so handily. But back to Terminator 2. Instead of sneaking around the back entrance to the bar, the Terminator enters through the front door. Why? Why does the Terminator choose a bar to go into, and why does he enter through the front door? I have a theory. I submit that James Cameron and William Wisher, the two people credited with writing the screenplay for Terminator 2, wrote and choreographed this barroom scene to subliminally make us think of a Western. Western movies have many tropes, few so recognizable as the gunslinger, a stranger, coming through the swinging doors at the front of a saloon, while in the background a piano player plays a lively tune. At the entrance of the gunslinger, heads turn, the bartender, the other cowboys, the dolled-up young lady, and the gunslinger steps forward to demand a beer or a shot of whiskey. In short order, some kind of confrontation will take place. Here, the stranger is not dressed all in black or all in white. He's stark naked, which makes it harder to determine if he's a good guy or a bad guy. And that, of course, is the twist to Terminator 2. In the background, the modern equivalent of a piano player, the jukebox, plays the song Guitars, Cadillacs by Dwight Yoakam, what a friend of mine described as a neo-traditionalist take on the Bakersfield sound. Bakersfield is a city in California. I remind you that this movie is set in Los Angeles, California. We are not in Texas or Arizona, but we are getting a vibe of the Wild West, from the country music, this guy with the cowboy hat, and the stranger coming into the saloon, which is called... anyone? The Corral. Besides being a fenced-in area for animals, to corral something is to gather or collect it. The T-800, of course, is here to corral some clothing. I also think it's funny that this waitress is wearing a t-shirt that reads Willie and Family Live 79 Tour. Willie being country singer Willie Nelson, when clearly this waitress is responding to a different kind of Willie. The T-800 is scanning each person in turn to see if their clothes will fit him. It finds a match in the bearded biker, here portrayed by the actor Robert Winley, who I was sorry to see died in the year 2001. And the T-800 speaks its first words. I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. In the first Terminator movie, the T-800 says, your clothes, give them to me, now. But here, the T-800 specifies that in addition to the biker's clothes, it needs his boots. I would argue that the word boots subconsciously suggests cowboy boots to us. Bikers as well as cowboys wear boots. The expression he died with his boots on is a Western idiom, and in Westerns, people are buried on Boot Hill. This statement from the T-800 elicits from the biker and all his friends a rousing round of laughter. The T-800, however, does not respond. I think because it's trying to process why its statement would be considered funny. I imagine the T-800 is scanning its databanks for what to say next. But then the biker speaks, saying, you forgot to say please. Now, a very nice creative choice here is that in lesser hands, this biker character would growl that line menacingly at the Terminator so that we know how tough he is. But instead, the biker speaks with a slow, dulcet voice. You forgot to say please. That makes him even more menacing. Notice that the biker doesn't tell the naked stranger to say please. Instead, he's making a statement of fact. You forgot to say please. I imagine again that the T-800 does not respond because it's trying to process why, in this situation, it would need to say the word please at the end of a statement of fact. I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. When the biker says you forgot to say please, we, the audience, know not to take him literally. The biker is making a sarcastic remark on the outrageousness of this request, but the T-800's computer brain may not know how to process sarcasm. Now, it may strike us, the audience, as comical for a Terminator to say please, which is a human courtesy. But lest we forget, a Terminator does know how to say please when making a request. In the first movie, when the T-800 is trying to gain access to Sarah Connor at the police station, he tells the officer at the front desk, I'm a friend of Sarah Connor's. I was told that she's here. Could I see her, please? The T-800 in the second movie is not the same one as in the first movie, so what the first T-800 learns, that saying please does not guarantee compliance with a request, does not carry over to this second T-800. For some bizarre reason, the biker does not see a muscular 6'2" naked man as a threat. Maybe because he's got all his biker pals with him. So he feels it's okay not only to blow cigar smoke in the naked stranger's face, but also to extinguish his cigar on his naked chest, clearly expecting the naked man to cough, tear up, and wince in pain. When the naked stranger doesn't respond in this way, the expression on the biker's face shows that that doesn't compute in his brain. Now, because this is Terminator 2, and very likely anyone who watches this movie has already seen the first Terminator movie, we already know that Arnold Schwarzenegger is playing an android from the future with incredible strength. The characters in the bar don't know this, so this is a textbook example of dramatic irony, when we, the audience, know something that the characters in a movie or a play do not. We know what's about to happen, and we feel the excitement of anticipation, and we get the pleasurable release of knowing we were right as the action plays out as we expected. So, to the fight. The T-800 recognizes the smoke and the cigar in his chest as a threatening gesture. According to his internal readout, he goes into defense mode. The T-800 does the bare minimum to subdue its target. It takes hold of the biker's hand and breaks it. The T-800 doesn't want to rip this guy's arm out of its socket because it needs the man's clothing. A second biker strikes the T-800 on the back of his head with a pool cue, giving a similar crack as when the biker broke the billiard balls at the start of the scene. That is a great moment of editing and sound design. The T-800 disposes of the biker by means of defenestration, throwing him through a window, which is a stock move straight out of a Western. While back in the bar, the Terminator throws the bearded biker into the kitchen. Now, the script could have just had the Terminator throw the bikers against a wall, but that's not very Western. The bearded biker goes through a kind of window and lands on a hot stove. Now, if you, fully clothed, were to lie down on a hot stove like this, the result would not be torrents of steam everywhere. But this is a movie where filmmakers need to use sound and visuals to convey ideas. So all this steam and hissing goes straight to our brain to tell us that stove is extremely hot, and we react in a visceral way. It's also a nice touch that the Terminator, having been burned by the biker, burns him in response. A third assailant from the biker group steps forward, and note that in the first Terminator movie, the T-800 confronts and overcomes 3 young punks, and here he confronts 3 bikers. Just like the punks in the first movie, this biker tries to stab the T-800, but the Terminator disarms him and stabs the biker in the back, seemingly pinning him to the table. The other bikers leave the scene, and I love this biker here. He realizes that his pool cue is not going to be effective either as an offensive or defensive weapon. Bailing is the best option here. So now the T-800 enters the kitchen. The blocking here, the positioning of the 2 actors is very nice. A moment ago, these 2 stood as equals eye to eye, but now the biker is on the floor, looking up at the T-800 as a child looks at a parent. The bearded biker on the floor produces a firearm and tries to use it. We can see that the biker is left-handed, so he would use his right hand to cock the weapon, but his right hand, remember, is broken, and both hands are badly burned. But we need a visual reminder of this. When we see the biker's shaking hand, shaking either out of fear or pain, or both, it visually conveys his fragility to us. Notice that the biker doesn't just produce his weapon and start blasting. What the biker has here is a semi-automatic pistol. He's trying to cock the gun, that is, to manually put a bullet into the gun's chamber so he can fire it. But he can't do this. Now, if the biker had been anticipating trouble that night, he could have taken his gun, put a bullet in the chamber, and then put the safety on, so that when he produces the weapon, all he has to do is release the safety, instead of wasting valuable seconds trying to put a bullet into the chamber. The T-800 snatches the gun away as a parent would grab a toy from a disobedient child. Then the T-800 cocks the weapon, putting a bullet into the chamber. Notice, though, that the T-800 doesn't shoot the biker. He could, but then he would have to strip the biker's clothing off his lifeless body. As previously noted in the first Terminator movie, the T-800 obtains clothing from a group of young men who look like punk rockers. They carry switchblades, they seem rowdy, but we don't see them vandalizing property or committing any crime. In Terminator 2, the T-800 disposes of a group of bikers. And we don't see this group of bikers doing anything bad or illegal. They're just hanging out, enjoying some drinks and playing pool. But, as in the first Terminator movie, it's dramatically satisfying and a form of wish fulfillment to see someone wipe the floor with a bunch of bikers all in black leather. Our brains may associate leather-clad bikers with the Hells Angels, who originated in California, not far from Los Angeles, where this movie is set. Now, I'm not suggesting James Cameron and William Wisher want us to think specifically of the Hells Angels, but this group of men and women could have been dressed in more ordinary clothing. I myself don't play pool, but I don't know what kind of flexibility of movement you would have wearing a leather jacket while you play. All fictional stories, short stories, novels, plays, and especially movies, ask the audience to turn off their brains for a while so that the story can proceed. This is what's known as the suspension of disbelief. We are now at the biggest suspension of disbelief in this entire scene. We cut from the biker tossing the T-800 the keys to his motorcycle to the Terminator exiting the bar fully clothed, shot from below to make him look even more big and badass, and the T-800 mounts the motorcycle. Then the bartender emerges with a shotgun. Bear in mind that the T-800 would have had to have helped the injured biker get undressed. His shirt, his jacket, his pants, his boots, and who knows, maybe his underwear. Unless the T-800 is going commando. Then the T-800 itself would have to get dressed. What was the bartender doing this entire time? Trying to find his shotgun? Trying to explain what was happening to 911? Also, our attention is so focused on the T-800 here that we might miss the detail that the defenestrated biker is still on the hood of the car. He's been there this whole time? Of course, our brains are meant to skip over these questions. Kudos to the filmmakers for constructing a scene that distracts the logical part of our brains in this moment. The bartender, with his shotgun, fires a warning shot into the air, which, as any responsible gun owner will tell you, is a very reckless and dangerous thing to do. But it is a gesture we may subliminally recognize from a Western. The more strategic thing for the bartender to have done would have been to fire the shotgun at the ground near the T-800 on the motorcycle. Not only would this have been relatively safer, it would have taken less effort, less time for him to raise the shotgun and aim directly at the T-800. The bartender quickly recocks the gun. He says, "I can't let you take the man's wheels, son. Now get off before I put you down." I, I love that line because it implies that, look, I might let go the fact that you came in here and beat people up and caused mayhem, but we have to draw the line at taking a man's motorcycle. As the Terminator nears, the bartender says, "That's it, goddammit." Now we, the audience, know what he means. You've come close enough. Come no further. But the T-800 may not know what this utterance means, and thus he may not care. Notice that the Terminator doesn't produce the handgun that he already has in order to have a shootout with the bartender. Instead, for the second time, the T-800 just snatches away the weapon. Again, we must suspend disbelief here, because the bartender would likely be holding on to this weapon very tightly, out of tension or fear, and his finger might have even been in the trigger guard. It is possible to manually disarm someone pointing a shotgun at you, but not that quickly or efficiently. Then the T-800 surprises the bartender by taking his sunglasses. Note that the sunglasses are in the same spot on the bartender's chest as where the biker put his cigar out on the T-800's chest. So perhaps the Terminator, whose brain is a learning computer, has learned how to humiliate his opponent. In the first Terminator movie, the T-800 wears sunglasses to hide the fact that there has been damage around his robotic eye, revealing the fact that he is a machine. Here, the T-800 appears to be wearing sunglasses at night because it looks cool? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Machines don't have vanity, and Arnold is already menacing without wearing sunglasses. There is no logical or narrative-based reason for the T-800 in Terminator 2 to be wearing sunglasses. Now, I'm guessing that James Cameron and William Wisher just thought the T-800 looks cool and badass wearing dark sunglasses. But in the context of a Western vibe, the black sunglasses obscure the T-800's eyes, like a mask, not unlike the Lone Ranger. The T-800 turns with the efficiency of a soldier, mounts the motorcycle, and, like a cowboy, rides off, without turning on the motorcycle's lights because this will attract less attention. Maybe it just looks cool. Another touch of humor is that the T-800 is on a model of Harley-Davidson called a Fat Boy. So, a Fat Boy tried to stop the T-800 from taking a Fat Boy, but the T-800, being anything but a Fat Boy, takes it anyway. And I love how the bartender here has nothing to do but give the universal TV and movie sign that he doesn't understand what he's looking at. He just scratches his head. The T-800 needs clothing for practical purposes, but to make someone take off all their clothes is to humiliate them. And further, the T-800 strips the punks and the bikers of the clothing they use to project an aura of toughness. Ironically, the T-800 himself uses a suit of flesh to project the aura of being human. When you go back to this scene, having watched the entire movie, I think it's wonderful that the scene is full of details that should tip us off that there's something different about this Terminator. The comedy of the scene, its subtle references to genre movie tropes, the use of popular music, the vanity of the Terminator to take the sunglasses, and most of all, the fact that unlike the first Terminator movie scene in which the T-800 obtains clothing, here the T-800 doesn't kill anyone. In fact, the T-800 doesn't kill anybody in this movie, even before John Connor orders him not to kill anyone. The only person the T-800 kills is himself, in a gesture of sacrifice befitting the valiant cowboy hero. In the strange Mobius strip logic of the Terminator movies, the T-800 kills himself to ensure that he won't ever be born. And like the Lone Ranger, we didn't even get a chance to thank him. Thank you for watching this video, and if you notice any other interesting details in this scene, please share them with me in the comments. Tell me what you see when you saw this scene. My name is Tim Lemire, and we will see you next time.